Alrighty, folks, this is what we were waiting for, isn't it? You know, I've done a bunch of fantasy drafts the past few days, just prepping for the season, you know, getting in with the various friend groups that I'm a part of that happen to be hockey fans, and just trying to draft guys, see what players are doing well. But one player that I've had a very difficult time trying to evaluate happens to be the subject of today's video. We've spoken about him a bunch over the past few weeks, especially when it comes to the idea of the Detroit Red Wings trading for him. But folks, today we have ourselves an update as to Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Erik Karlsson. Now, throughout the course of the summer, we've been talking about how the Penguins are one of the only teams in the NHL that are sellers. And lo and behold, Erik Karlsson plays for the gosh darn Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby is still as good as ever. Evgeny Malkin might not be coming back after this season. Chris Letang is a shell of his former self. Rust and Raquel were on the market for the entire summer, but they didn't get traded because Kyle Dubas' asking price was way too high. And then you have Erik Karlsson. He's 35 years old. He's making $11.5 million a year till the end of 2027. The contract does have some salary retained from the San Jose Sharks over to the Pittsburgh Penguins, so it is a little different. He's only making 10 against the Penguins cap there, but the thing is, this guy has one of the biggest and most unnecessarily high contracts in the NHL, at least for what he's able to provide now. Once upon a time, there was reason why Erik Karlsson making 11.5 wasn't that bad, especially a few years ago when he had a 100-point season with the Sharks. How many defensemen go out there and do that? But ever since getting traded over to Pittsburgh, the guy's got back-to-back 50-point years, and he's still making $10 million against that Penguins cap. 50 points in 82 games is not bad, but it's definitely not $10 million territory, nor is it in the same echelon of 100 points like he had accomplished the year before. So Erik Karlsson has a very good reason for Pittsburgh to move on from him. He's just not as good, and he's quite expensive. Now, linking this over to the Detroit Red Wings, it's been talked about by a various number of NHL insiders, writers, and analysts that when hearing about potential Erik Karlsson trade destinations, the Detroit Red Wings always pop in there as one of the main combatants, a team that has arguably showed the most interest in acquiring Karlsson and his services. And I'd say, honestly, with the way Axel Sandin Pellikka has shown off in the preseason, I think a lot of us can agree that he probably needs some time in the AHL before becoming a full-time Red Wing, maybe sometime next year. And so if you have a little bit of a gap, if you're not too confident in Justin Hall or Jacob Bernard-Docker, Erik Karlsson isn't the worst option to add on to your hockey team. Would he be expensive? Yeah, quite literally, the money that he's making is a lot. But this is a guy who still can provide a very good offensive element to his game. You don't need to give Moritz Seider all the minutes on the right side anymore because that guy was worked to the ground last year. And just the idea of seeing Raymond Larkin, Kane, and Erik Karlsson on one power play, that sounds pretty good. The Red Wings' power play was already pretty good last year. They could get even better if they had Erik Karlsson manning the point instead of Erik Gustafsson, for example. Nothing against Gus, it's just Karlsson's in a higher tier, I'd say. But the reason we're making this video, going over the updates in regards to the Erik Karlsson situation, is because of what Pittsburgh Penguins beat writer Josh Yohei said on the Fan Hockey Show a few days ago on September 26th. NHL Trade Alert went out there and posted this on Twitter. Via the Fan Hockey Show, Josh Yohei, talking about the Penguins, says the team wants to trade Erik Karlsson, and Yohei thinks it wouldn't take a big return to get it done. He's been told if the Penguins retain salary, there is a lot of interest. And so, if this is the way things are going down, where the Penguins had this guy, they had all summer to think about trading him, they didn't end up doing so, and now they're in a spot where heading into the actual regular season, the Penguins are seriously thinking about unloading Erik Karlsson, now also pondering the idea of trading him at a discount with salary retained. Now, I think we're starting to see some of that keeper's remorse creep into the forefront here. A lot of analysts were saying throughout the course of August and the early parts of September that NHL teams didn't really want to sell because they all thought they would be competitive. 31 out of 32 teams, of course, the only one that's not included was Pittsburgh. 31 teams in the NHL thought that, hey, we actually want to see what we can do, we want to be competitive, we want to potentially try to make a splash here. Chicago and San Jose wanted to see their young guys take a step. Detroit, Vancouver, and other teams just outside the wild card wanted to improve and force themselves into the playoff picture. Every team that was in the playoffs wants to continue staying there, and teams that were at the very top of the league, they want to continue to be in that spot too. There are so many teams at various levels of development and talent that they all kind of want the same thing. They just want to hold on to what they've got. Most NHL teams spent money to keep the guys around that they had initially, and there wasn't really much movement in the offseason. Now, I think we're starting to see some teams in the preseason evaluate their players a little more reasonably, and for Pittsburgh, it's like, yeah, well, I guess we're really going to have to start thinking about Erik Karlsson and thinking about moving this guy away, not necessarily because he's been good or bad or whatever in the preseason, but just because now is the time. If there was a time for the Pittsburgh Penguins to try to capitalize on a team that thinks they might be better than they thought, or if a team gets a little bit desperate because they think, oh, we're actually not as good as we thought, let's try to get an extra asset. Maybe now we will see teams start to make trades, and maybe now Pittsburgh will be inclined to trade Erik Karlsson with some salary retained, getting a discount going on for teams that want him and potentially not even getting much in return. This is not a player that I think has a negative value, but his value isn't that high when you consider that contract and the lack of defensive play that Erik Karlsson provides. If he's going out there and getting 55 to 100 points any season, then that's why you're paying him money. That's why you have him on your team. You're not expecting penalty kill or really good, solid defensive play out of Erik Karlsson. You want this guy to score a point a game, you want him to be on every power play, you want him setting everything up on the power play, and that's where he makes his money. And the Detroit Red Wings have already been reported to have being the top most interested team in this guy and his services before this potential discount conversation started to creep up into Josh Yohei's microphone. So with all this in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the latest in Pittsburgh Penguins Erik Karlsson trade talk and how this relates to the Detroit Red Wings? I do think the Wings are in a spot where they could improve quite a bit if they were to acquire a guy like Erik Karlsson. They've got a lot of young guys and a lot of picks that would be probably interesting to Kyle Dubas. I mean, if he wants to go down the path of a rebuild with the Penguins, this wouldn't be a bad way to do it, I'd say. And prospects in the wing system definitely are quite valuable, so I think there might be some interest if you were to really twist Kyle Dubas' arm. But if you enjoyed this video, please click that like button in the under part section below. If you didn't like this video, then hey, the dislike button is there for you. Comment in the comment section below, how do you feel about this Erik Karlsson trade update? Comments help out with the algorithm, so I appreciate that very much. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.